Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Two Through and After with Stu Smith. I am your host, and we have a special guest, Rob Dubois, former Navy SEAL, and we are going to go through his journey from being a young teenage kid deciding to serve his country and to what he's doing now. So there's a lot of space to kind of talk about there in between those parameters. So, Rob, welcome to my Two Through and After show. I've been doing this for, I guess, over a year and probably done 15, 16 spec ops level guys in their
Right on.
journey. So it's a pleasure to have you on here. Thank you for
It's
taking
a
the
real
time.
privilege to be here. Thanks, Stu.
Thanks. So who were you, Rob, before you decided to join the military? Was there a particular moment where you said, I know I'm going to serve your country in some way?
I had a moment when I knew I would serve in my teens, and it was what I would call youthful vigor and energy. I caught the idea of leathernecks at one point when I was a young teenager, and God bless them. I love the Marines. The Marines are our brothers.
Oh, of course.
They're SEALs in a different uniform, with the heart of a lion. The I got the idea of maybe an old friend had his dad's leatherneck magazine laying around. So I was 13. I was like, this is what I got to do. I got to do this thing. But that was 13-year-old Rob. And then 15-year-old Rob was like, no, I need to be a veterinarian. And so I started looking at how to be a veterinarian.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
I was like, okay, I got on the path because I read James Herriot, All Creatures Great and Small, which
Okay.
I learned later is actually a novel, not an account of his actual life
Right.
in England, which I felt crushed by. One of the many betrayals of my life. So I was on my path for like 4 years. I was going to go to Cornell and do my pre-med stuff, my basic college stuff at Plattsburgh SUNY, State University of New York, where
Okay.
my home. I'm from a little village up in New York in the Adirondack Mountains.
Okay. Nice.
But I got to college, and I'd known I had school all along. I'm not sure why I thought college school would be different from school that I was already familiar with. So I got to college, like, yeah, I sucked. I did really well in drinking, and besides that, though, the chem, calc, bio, that was just like not going to work for me. I was invited to leave by the administration, believe it or not. I had
Ouch.
a 1.2 GPA. They called me in to tell me about that, and I said, really? And they're like, yeah. I said, that's cool. I'm like, how's that cool? I said, 1.2 was the Animal House cum. When they were. So this is like where my mind was at the time. They're like, that's not cool. That's 4 is like a lot better than 1.2. And
Yeah.
I said, so you're kicking me out? They said, no, we're inviting you to leave. So I left, and then I decided to become a rock star, swinging a hammer, working as a carpenter's helper. I had nothing to do, nothing to go to. So like, but one thing I've consistently loved though is guiding. My heart is on the rivers because of the
Oh, okay.
Adirondack Mountains, the Saranac
Yeah.
Lakes. So I was guiding as a teenager before I went to. Sorry, I got a little ding here.
Oh, that's all
Before I
right.
went to the to the Navy, I was guiding in the Adirondacks on the Saranacs, taking groups of people out for a week at a time in the islands and the lakes. And so that's where my heart is. Dubois means of the woods. And so Rob of the Wood. I've never
Okay.
left the
I
wood. My
love it.
family is very, very much drawn to it.
Yeah. You ever swim in those Finger Lakes up there?
Absolutely. Good cold mountain river lakes.
Oh man, that is some pretty water up
Fantastic.
there.
I
Upstate New
just
York
picked up an old canoe for
is
myself
pretty
finally.
nice. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I've
love it.
done a lot of guiding, as a consultant, as a coach, taking people out for retreats and so forth, as we'll talk about in the more recent years.
Yeah.
But since I was a teenager, I've been on the lakes and on the rivers and just paddling. See, I have a lot of time in Hawaii. So
Okay.
half of my adult life is in Hawaii, and we paddle outriggers out there.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh
I
man.
learned from the Hawaiians when I began paddling that kind of canoe that they call my kind of canoe an Indian canoe, which
Mm.
is, just the different cultural perspectives on what
Yeah, that is
the things we
interesting.
love to do are, because we're both, men of the water.
I love it. I love it. So your situation at the time, um, not necessarily grim, but your original planning didn't go quite as well as you thought it would. So what was the transition for you? What did you What did you find that kind of guided you towards going to see a recruiter?
It's a question I don't often answer. And I hear the question, why did you become a SEAL? You've heard the same thing 10,000 times. Why did you
Oh
become
yeah,
a SEAL?
sure.
Often from young men, 16 or 18 or 20-year-old men, because they feel the same call. And why I went back to the Navy after failing college, I mean, Cornell wasn't going to happen if I couldn't master Plattsburgh State University of New York. So, by the way, kind of a little spoiler for everybody here. In 2018, I got my 4-year degree after 34 years of college. I like to call it the advanced, because some people like to bang it out in like 4 years and think it's irresponsible.
Spread it out. Spread it out.
Yeah, so I dragged those for 34 years out and got my 4-year degree 2 years ago.
Nice.
But after not succeeding at college in my teens, like I said, I swung a hammer for a while. I did some guiding. I did what I needed to do to get by, and I tried to do the rock star thing for a while. So
really in a band?
Yeah, well, gigs. I mean, just garage bands.
Okay.
So hard rock stuff, Van Halen, Kiss, Scorpions kind of thing.
Sweet.
Although Scorpions is a bit out of my range.
What's your instrument?
Plus mine's an unusual creature. I don't know how he managed to get so high for Rock You Like a Hurricane and everything. But that's another part of my thing, like the Rivers. So I I realized, at one point, like many people who are unfocused and undisciplined, the military, I started to think about it because the idea of the Marine Corps came back 6 years later, got in my head. I was like, that's a thing. So I went to the recruiters, and this is a no bull story. Not sure what your age level is here for the rating, so I will not.
That's very nice.
I will not go into the
but...
R-rated stuff, language wise. But I thought, who's got the toughest commandos? This is 1985. I don't think Charlie Sheen even made the movie yet, or if it was like
maybe Marcinko's book came out by then.
We had heard of the Rogue Warrior. So I went to the 3 recruiters, to the Army, Army, Navy, and Marines, and I asked them each point blank, who's got the toughest commandos? That was a very simple criterion for me. Now, my father was an NSA asset during Vietnam in the Army. He was what we call a Chiling in the linguist world. So I'd always been fascinated by that. What are all the stuff Dad couldn't tell me about from the 60s? I heard about it through my 60s and 70s and in the early 80s of my life. And I said, what's that about? So it turned out I had a language aptitude too. I studied Latin in high school because guess what? I'm going to be a veterinarian. So
smart.
Latin, banged it out, and it's a really strong foundational language for anybody interested in linguistics.
Oh, it absolutely is. Yeah.
Go into Latin, you'll learn all the Romance foundation that is the basis of at least half the languages on Earth. Yep. That's probably an exaggeration, but a great many languages have roots in Latin.
And good for SAT preparation.
It is, exactly, because you recognize pieces of the words you've never heard of. It's like, wait, this probably means this.
Yep.
So I had this idea in my head, who's got the toughest commandos? And the reason I asked that is because I understood some concepts about rites of passage, about the circle of men and the circle of women and traditional cultures. We hear about things like the sun dance by Native Americans. Mm-hmm. The sun dance is, and I'm going to butcher I won't say it precisely, but it's a crossing over from boy to man. And what the young men do in this process, like you'll see on A Man Called Horse in a variation.
Oh yeah.
They'll take a knife and slit the skin of the pectoral muscle, over the pectoral muscle, in two strips basically. On both sides, so that they can take a piece of wood and slide it under the skin.
I remember.
And they tie that to leather thongs, tie that to a 10-foot long strand, and that is tied to a stake. And the boys, to become men, have to dance up to the pole, tap it, and run back and try to break through. Oof. So it's literally a badge of honor, because once you've done the tearing through, you always have those scars that identify you as a man. So that mattered to me, because in 1985, I already saw the softening of our society. We were already experiencing things like Atari, which is not an indictment against the video game industry. I love video games now. My son's got me into it. I enjoy them. However, it became a thing in recent decades that softened our population, our younger generation.
I would agree with that.
With a
You,
sense
you
of,
know, it's funny, when I was at Buds, they called us the MTV generation.
yeah, and then we were the 80s kids that did soft things as compared to the hard things that many other generations did growing up in the woods. I'll see you back, when the street lights go out, you better be home, boy.
Oh yeah, I remember those.
That's
That
how
was
we
good
were
stuff.
raised, and
Yeah.
before us it was tougher than that.
Yeah.
In Buds, we always talk about, I was in the last hard class. Mine was the last hard class, 205 back in 1986 we graduated. I mean, in 96. But the softening bothered me. I didn't know I couldn't verbalize it, couldn't describe what the problem was, only that there was something that we weren't being tested. So the reason I went to Buds 10 years later is because of two things. I wanted to be tested to my maximum, the hardest thing I could imagine in the world, for my own benefit, and I wanted to be able to be prepared to do the most or give the most. But that, to rewind, we'll talk about again when I went to Buds. I briefed it there a little. But
Yeah.
I joined the Navy in 85, not 90s.
Sure.
And I asked them that question. Who's got the toughest commandos? And all three recruiters surprisingly told me, well, I guess that's the Navy. I didn't know what a SEAL was. So the Navy said it, of course. The Army guy who has the Special Forces said it. And the Marine, who also knew about the Marine Force Recon and the commandos in the Marine Corps, all three of them said, well, I guess that's probably the Navy. And I said, okay, I'll go to the Navy. I went to the Navy, said, I'm going to go with you because everybody agrees you got the toughest commandos. That's what I'm going to do. And the kid's like, okay, whatever. I was 19. I think he knew everything. Nothing. He was some E3 or E5 or whatever who meant well, and his quota had to be met. So he's like, yeah, cool. And I said, can I, because they gave me this offer to be a linguist because my D-Lab was off the charts. They said that it never went so high. D-Lab is the Defense Language Aptitude Battery for,
Sure.
the listeners. And that D-Lab score was 130. And at this MEP station, it was like extremely high. I think you have to score an 80 to get into to Spanish and a 90 to get into Russian, for example. So they said 130. Good God, man, we'll give you any language you want if you agree to do this thing. And I said, cool, let's go with Russian because the Soviets are the threat. That's what the threat I grew up with.
Yeah, that's what we studied.
Yep, in the 80s.
Yep,
in the 80s, absolutely. It was the Soviets. It was the Red Menace. It was Brezhnev, and others followed. So they said, okay, sure. And I said, can I be a linguist and also a SEAL? And they said, yeah, sure. Sign here, quick. Little word of the wise for all those young men and women looking at this about recruiters. They will sometimes say whatever they need to say to get you in.
Absolutely.
I don't want to, diminish the honor of many good men and women who are recruiters, but that's what happened to me. I said, cool. I signed it, got to boot camp. They did the Bud screening at the boot camp. Hey guys, and you knuckleheads want to become a SEAL, come on up and do the screening in boot camp in San Diego in 86. And I got up there and they said, not you. You got a contract to be a linguist. So it's a non-source rating. You cannot become a SEAL if you have one of those ratings back in the day. Before we had special operators, SOs, sure. For the rating or job specialty today. So I began a process of 10 years of waiting to go to Buds.
Wow. So that's a big journey. So what you're accomplishing there is, one, you're learning Russian. Two, you're doing that job for those 10 years, still training, trying to get to Buds, trying to special request chit your way to lateral transfers.
Really.
So talk a little bit. Talk a little bit about that journey of lateral transfer, and even by the time you're 30, there's an age waiver that is involved at some point. But I think it's a little bit different for active duty guys.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, you're really guiding some important questions that I rarely am asked to answer, and it's really, I think, very helpful talking about the hero's journey for listeners, for your audience. So two things I really want to highlight here. One is that I sincerely believe, and the way I coach people today is to talk about potentiality, what a person has inside of him or her. And we never live up to our full potential. That's my personal opinion. We never do that. Nobody does. I don't. Tony Robbins doesn't. We just had Jim Mattis was in the news yesterday on an op-ed for the Washington Post. Jim Mattis never lived up yet to his potential. pure potential. There's always room to
Sure.
grow. There's always a margin of
Never
improvement.
stop learning. Yeah.
Shave
Never
something
stop
off.
growing.
Exactly. Lifelong growth and improvement. So I strongly believe that in every bad is good. And I use the word bad loosely because one very wise thing I've heard is you're in every contest or challenge, you're either winning or you're learning. Changing the idea of losing into a learn.
Hey, yeah, there's no losing. Yeah.
And therefore, right. And if you're learning, you're winning.
Yeah. I like that.
So if you lost, you actually won by learning something and making you better. Michael Jordan talked about the 3,000 shots he missed, teaching him, so much more about basketball than the 10,000 he made, whatever the number of wins for effective shots he made.
Sure.
So I wasn't ready to go to Buds. And everything in life happens at the right time, unless we force it, in which case it happens at the wrong time, in which case it's not meant to be at that time. So in 1986, I was really upset and frustrated. What? You're taking this away from me? But the recruiter, and they're like, tell us another one. The recruiter, huh?
Yeah.
Shut up and get back to your cot. Go make your bunk. I was really frustrated and demoralized, but I needed to experience that. And one very evident point of fact that I wasn't ready is because I was still drinking. So I started, I became a drinker in my teens. I got really good at it in college for that ill-fated 6 months.
Sure.
Before I was invited to leave like Animal House. And then I kept practicing. And I'm an alcoholic, and I didn't know that. So I am a recovering alcoholic now for quite a long time, but really just for today. My focus is on doing the healthiest thing for me in any particular day. That's the best I can do. In this hour, it's all we have. So we'll, skip over that. But at the time, I was an active alcoholic who didn't recognize it. And I could never have mustered the strength of will to drive through Buds. We both know how hard it is, and
sure,
we both know it's been called the toughest military school on earth in some stories. I'm not going to get midnight fact checking on whether it's the toughest defining that, but it's 7 months now, 12 for the boys that don't have a probation like we did.
Yep.
12 straight months of school, and the first 6 months are hell. Really, really hard. I couldn't have done that at 19 when I thought I could.
I couldn't have. I know I couldn't have.
So you went later.
I went after college at 22.
Right on.
Yeah.
So we need maturation. And so that was a blessing to me, a blessing in disguise. There's a Garth Brooks song, Unanswered Prayers. Well, he said, he saw the girl of his dreams with his wife when he went to a hometown football game. He remembers little, Tammy Sue. It's like, holy crap, I couldn't live without her 15 years ago. And now I have the life of my dreams without her because I was given this gift of not getting what I wanted at the time. Same with me and Buds. If we recognize that, and I'll really keep pointing out, I want to talk about the preparation, our life, this moment while you and I are exchanging this conversation, our life is a process of preparation. I'm convinced of it. I have one very solid fact that proves that to me anyway. So I spent 10 years as a spook, we called it then.
Sure. An
NSA spy. Became an expert in Russian language, order of battle, Russian culture, nuanced ways of thinking, what they were about. So I could translate, I could interpret, I could transcribe. I did everything at NSA.
Nice.
On site for a few years. And then at remote stations, I was also stationed in Turkey before they shut down the site there, a remote site on the Black Sea. Before I sent in 3 packages for Buds. First was really my application with joining the Navy. Another one happened a few years later, and they said, no, you're not going to go to Buds. But
yeah, you're a pretty important role at that time too. Mid 80s, late 80s, early 90s.
Yep.
They weren't going to let any Russian linguist go away.
Absolutely, it was a very important language at the time, and then it became not so important in the early 90s when Soviets had a major change, and Gorbachev changed everything.
Yep.
So I decided to try again in the very early 90s by just beginning the process. But I had a crisis. I had a crisis of drinking. My addiction, which is a mental illness, a form of mental illness, which I've had to grow so much from, in being in recovery and learning about how not to slip back into that lifestyle. Uh, it's called cutting, baffling, and powerful for a lot of addicts who are recovering. It's like another person. It makes sense to me that we used to imagine things like demonic possession for somebody who was having struggles, emotional or mental illness. So I did things like I was captain's masted repeatedly. I was arrested and put in jails over those 5 years of the Navy from '86 to '91. And one captain told me, "Rob, I wish I could charge you for criminal stupidity," because he saw the potential. He couldn't. That wasn't in the UCMJ, but he said, "Dude, stop, please." Earnestly begging, "Please stop. I don't want you to hurt yourself anymore because you have so much to give." He saw this talent. He saw this raw value that I was destroying. So in '91, I was at a remote site in Turkey and had the final crisis of God willing for the rest of my life. I'm not going to promise that to me or anybody,
Nice.
because it takes my mind off of the purpose of today. The purpose of today is to work on growing myself, healing myself, staying in contact with others, remaining humble, humbling down and manning up is one way I like to look at it, because
nice.
the stronger we are, the more humble we are, the more right size we are, the stronger we can be, the more we can give to others. There's a not a net zero, but there's diminishing returns on self-sufficient power. And no one is as strong as we are all strong together. Cooperation is infinitely has more potentiality than how many push-ups I can do personally.
Sure.
We need to focus on working well with others. In other words, emotional intelligence. So I had that crisis. I was masted again, and the captain at the time, Commander Delory, God bless him. Haven't talked to him since then. And I just had a birthday, a recovery birthday, 3 days ago, for 29 years. 29 years no drinking, which goes right hand in hand with 29 years no going to jail. Coincidence or not, right? So, yeah, I think that all the jail time happened while I was drinking, and because I was drinking and being criminally insane and doing incredibly stupid things, destroying my life and myself. So really, a lot of my story, a lot of my hero's journey goes back to those suicidal days. At one point, I was in my barracks when I couldn't handle it. I thought there was just no way out. I thought I was filth. I thought I was garbage. I couldn't figure out how to beat this monster, this alcohol, this addiction. And I was on the third deck at my barracks, and I already knew in my early 20s I was a tough son of a gun, really tough. I'd already been in a few crashes, a few falls, a few things that didn't break me. And to this day, I haven't had a broken bone after a career in the teams. So it's weird. I've had a lot of things broken on me, cartilage twisted, ribs literally twisted in my rib cage, and injuries and surgeries and so forth to repair me from a really bad landing on Fort Island runway. I ran with the wind as a young jumper. Just got to the team, and I was like, I saw the windsock, the 10-foot windsock pole coming. And I was like, oh no, I'm going to get impaled on that thing. So I pulled hard, spun around, ran with the wind before I hit the asphalt at about 30 miles an hour.
Added some speed.
Did not have my sticks together. Complete dumbass mistake. I went end over end for a good 20 feet, just bam, 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 at high speed on the asphalt. The medic at the time, Bobby, who's passed on now, roared over to me in the ambulance pickup, and I got up and ran away to go to the back of the truck and give him my chute and take another one. And he and the sky god we had on the scene at the time were like, "What the hell, man? You shouldn't even been able to stand up after that. What's going on?" So I knew in my early 20s I was a tough guy, and I was looking. I remember distinctly. I can see it like it was yesterday. It was 30 plus years ago. I looked down from the third deck. The rail was right around waist height. Had slats of metal rods, verticals, and I could have easily just hopped over it and fallen 30 feet. But I knew that if I landed on my legs or my side, I would just break some things and keep on being alive, which I didn't like. Suicide is a monster. We've experienced many deaths ourselves in the recent years: OIF, OEF, TBI, traumatic brain injury, PTS, post-traumatic stress, which I had at the time. I didn't know. I had PTS from childhood. Another story entirely. but that's really part of the story of leading into addiction and so forth. So I saw the deck below me. I saw the grass. I thought, if I hit the grass, I'm going to live, and I'll be maybe banged up. If I hit the asphalt, I'll be broken, but live, because there was a sidewalk there. So I was trying to figure out how to fall so that I would get headfirst on the small strip of concrete, so I could crush my brain and die.
Oh,
That's the level to which I want people to be aware that if you're dealing with somebody who's suffering from mental illness, from addiction, from depression, be there for them. Reach out, learn all you can about it, and just learn how to be there for them. Because most of us, myself included, don't respond to people in need effectively. We're like all over them or too detached.
that's a very good point. That's a very good point. So, wow, that's a hard one to take off to the next question. After that one, so
Life is good.
yeah, no kidding. You have moved on. That is awesome. So let's do this. You finally got the go to Buds. What was that like?
Well, that was heaven on earth. I was married at the time, and I was it was
Were you E5, E6?
I was an E5.
Okay.
It was 1995, and I was well, 1995 is when I went to Buds, but my package went in about a year plus before that. I had great support from my command. They're like, yeah, you're a hard charger. We'll sponsor you. We'll encourage you to go. They can't guarantee you're going to get into Buds, but they can give their nomination. Yeah,
you need support. You need chain of command
exactly.
support.
The command needs to show they're behind it, or
Yeah.
Buds will never consider bringing you in.
Right.
So I got the application done, and I submitted it. My birthday's in May, and so in May of '94, I would have been turning 28, and the cutoff was 29, at least at the time. So package had to be in before your 28th birthday, I think, 27. So
okay. Yeah.
Anyway, I got it in, and it took a long time to get approved. I think it was 29. So you have to be 28 or younger to get your application in. And then I finally got the approval to go some months later to go to Buds. But the application was the deadline for the age waiver.
Oh, that's good.
Age limit. So it wasn't a waiver, but I did go after the waiver, after the application age. I was 29 when I went, and turned 30 during Buds.
Well, there's a reason why they make it a 17 to 29 year window, more like
Absolutely.
a barn door. That's a big. That's not a small window. That's a big frame. How was your recovery going through Buds? How did you fare? You're probably the LPO, I would imagine.
I wasn't. I was actually the second E5.
Oh, okay.
Another guy picked up E6 while I was there, but he was our LPO of the class because he was a ranger.
Oh, okay.
Another really cool story. So my Hell Week was secured by General Downing, who was SOCOM.
Yeah, I remember General Downing. Yeah.
96, I mean. I get my 90s and 80s confused because I'm a really old man. So I actually do the old man thing. Well, I'm like barely older than you, so I got to be careful what I say. So yeah, I do that with my sons, Jack and Gabe. I'm like, Gabe, and Jack's like, I'm Jack. But I'm not like, I know who he is. I'm not like flipping that badly, but it's just using the names interchangeably. Gabe or Jack, I'm Gabe. Yeah, I got it. Okay. So that's topic is age, right? I'm going to Buds, and I'm turning 30 in Buds. So I found that my life experience was a great benefit because I'd learned what I can survive. Again, 10 years almost of maturation from joining the Navy.
It's huge.
I had a lot of life experience. And the school is like any military school. It's designed to address the mental, emotional maturation level of the students on average, like boot camp. So a 25-year-old boot camp student in the Army doesn't have the same mindset as a 17-year-old. He's seen some things. He's like, really? Okay, whatever. Got it. Okay, you're gonna yell. You're gonna throw a trash can, and then you're gonna yell some more. Got it. As compared to the 17-year-old, like, somebody's yelling. Trash can. It's a very different state of mind.
It's a different state of mind. And you know what? You're especially if you've never left home before.
Exactly. And it's designed for them. It's
Yeah, if
designed to
you're,
affect them in a
it
positive
will,
way.
it will definitely affect someone who has never left home. And I call it the perfect storm for failure.
Yeah,
You
because of all
know,
the variables.
just so many things that come into play for that 17, 18-year-old kid who's never left home
Exactly.
before.
Yeah.
He's living in a new city, new people, people yelling at him, and asked to perform at the highest level he's ever even considered
Right.
himself to be able to perform, all in the same
He has
week.
no experience. He
Right.
has no understanding that not everybody will be nice to you. Yeah, maybe your dad was, mean to you sometimes. He was mean to you, but that's nothing compared to a drill instructor
Yeah,
in almost every case.
sure.
Um, and so the experience is one in which we're like shocked. But again, it's purposeful. It's not abuse, with some exceptions, obviously.
Sure.
It's not abuse. It's purposeful discomfort. And that's really, I talked about being hard to break. That goes right back to my philosophy on pain. Uh, from some stuff happened in my youth that was very troubling.
Sure.
I won't use the word abuse publicly because it's too general. It's too easy.
Right.
Oh wow, he was beat with this and he was beat with that. And his hands put on the burner. No, not like that. Just stuff happened, unhealthy things, and led to unhealthy youth, teens, unhealthy behaviors, unhealthy going into addiction. But pain is a great teacher. Pain is Tony Robbins again. I mean, I really admire Tony, and Tony's a mentor of mine, but
Sure.
not like a Tonyophile or anything. Just
Yeah.
interesting. This thing he talks about two motivators, pain or pleasure. You will either go after the carrot or you will avoid the stick, and that's really, if we can frame our lives to be like tricks, like David Allen, who wrote Getting Things Done, is one of my heroes. He's right up there with Stephen Covey for me in Seven Habits.
Yeah.
Because David, also a supporter of my work and my book, he personally passed manuscript around a powerful piece before we went to publication
No,
back in
nice.
2011. So the pain or pleasure concept is about tricks. Establish tricks for yourself to help yourself stay in line, like your discipline and the training and all the physical training is so important to habituate.
Sure. Yeah,
Habituate it.
absolutely. Yeah. For me, it's the catalyst for the mental. My
Exactly.
physical builds the foundation and
In
everything
motion,
else builds on top of it. And,
right,
your whole world becomes better organized and better disciplined.
falls into place if you establish basic habits.
Right. Exactly.
Which is what I actually say the word habits, like Stephen Covey said habits in all of his 7 Habits recordings that I listened to ad nauseum. The man spoke so much wisdom in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Real plan for life, real guidelines for effective living with personal character. And we're talking about the physical. Well, the mental is so closely related. Like you said, the mind follows the body. Get into motion, and you'll actually train your mind to have some discipline and go reverse back to give yourself more physical training, which gives you more mental clarity and focus and emotional strength. So we're body, mind, heart, and in my training and Impact Actual, we talk about body, mind, heart, and soul, the whole human being, 4
Absolutely.
aspects: physical, mental, emotional, and moral, or the character itself, which is separate from mind and heart, because there's some really intelligent people who work for Hitler.
Yeah.
So mind is not necessarily a quality of person
Sure.
measurement. The heart too. There's a whole bunch of really tuned in, really aware, feeling people in the world who can't make a decision and stick with it, can't make a hard conversation with somebody when they need to say, dude, you're off track. I'm going to help you get back on track. I'm going to fire you. Do you understand that? Well, the like, I can't say that. That'll hurt their feelings, until it becomes a crisis, and then they have to fire them. And Tommy never had a chance to get right because never had the love, the hard, tough love of being corrected with somebody who was emotionally strong enough to go past their discomfort. So the
Right.
character is a fourth thing.
Oh,
But
that's so
habits is
true.
all about growth,
Man, I
personal
love it.
growth on a regular basis.
Yeah, I love that. So here's the way I kind of put it out there for people to understand my mentality is everybody starts off highly motivated. Everybody wants to go do something, go serve their country, be a Navy SEAL, be a special forces guy, be whatever, be a doctor, be a veterinarian. Everybody's
Yep.
highly motivated to do that, which is great. That is the perfect time to start building those good habits.
Yes.
When you are motivated, you have that internal energy to start building those good habits, because there's going to be a day when you're tired, you're comfortable, you don't feel like doing something, but
Mm-hmm.
that those habits have to come in and kick in, and that's when your discipline is now created, and you can rely on your discipline, not on some motivation that might be waning here and there. So
Right. It's a
so
momentum.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's absolutely
Momentum overcomes a lack of motivation on those low days.
So let's talk about your motivation, how it evolved into these habits and your discipline that got you through Buds. When was it at Buds when you were like, I got this?
It was right after I quit.
What?
Right after I quit.
Okay.
This is another rarely told story. I never go this deep on my life.
Okay.
But you're talking about we're talking about the hero's journey today.
Yeah,
we're
sure.
talking about failures. We're talking about collapse.
Sure.
I quit Buds during Buds, and yet I graduated with my class. How's that?
Oh, you got to explain that because
exactly. So I never rang the bell. I had
never said you quit to anybody. You just were like, I'm done with this shit.
I said it all the way up to the training officer.
Okay.
And this is probably guys at Buds will be like, stop! Don't tell this story, dude. You're gonna wreck our discipline, right? Because you quit, you're out in Buds. That's the policy. But we also, anybody who knows anything about the military knows there are conditions in which common sense must apply. So basically, like I said, I was married when I went to Buds. I had been working for years and years and years to go to Buds. 10 years, almost, well, 8 years in the Navy, 9 years in the Navy before I went to Buds. I started first phase of Buds on January 3rd, 1996. That was the 10-year anniversary of starting boot camp in January 3rd, 1986.
Wow.
So I was an old dog when I started Buds, and I was an older dog, 30 years old when I graduated
married.
Buds.
That's tough.
And married, yes.
That's
exactly.
a tough.
That's exactly it. That's the key. We all know, guys. A few young guys go there with wives, and they'll actually move there, take a place down on the Strand, downtown, down a little south of IB or wherever.
Yep.
Get an apartment. Most guys aren't married when they go there, and most guys aren't coming up on 30 years old with a lifetime and a career and a marriage, all of which they've committed to also, which are very important to me. To be very specific, I'm not married now, and that's no indictment on anybody. It's just a statement of fact.
Sure.
It's better in this situation for my former wife and me to be not married, and we made that decision about 4 years ago. So I was married, and I had been so committed to Buds for so long that I was a deploying air crewman. So I was a flying spook at the time. I was doing work in Somalia and the unpleasantness in 1994.
Sure.
We're over in Mogadishu, General ID, the full-on Somali experience, Black Hawk Down. Black Hawk Down happened briefly, a little shortly before I got there, because we kept pumping in there for a month at a time to do overflights over the city, working out of Kenya, going into Somalia, stopping in Mogadishu, basing at the airfield there, and getting back up in the air and watching over everything because the war was on. The Mogadishu war, however small it was a real thing. And we know a lot of Americans lost their lives there in a terrible way.
Yeah.
So I flew in, and we had mortars coming in onto the ramp while we're refueling, things like that. So it was a sketchy time to be alive. So it was a very tactical life I was living. It wasn't like just sitting and drinking coffee under fluorescent lights all the time. I was very dynamic. We were everywhere around the Pacific side. The hemisphere was our domain for that squadron I was working with. We can go anywhere from India to, throughout PACOM, throughout Pacific Command. So I went to Buds from that mindset. I even went to air assault school before I went to Buds because, again, my boss was such a understanding dude. I was like, hey, I'm here in Hawaii where I've spent, most of my adult life, a good half of it at least. I said, I want to go to Buds. He's like, yeah, I know. And we're going to support you in that. And I said, I've got this opportunity to go to Schofield Barracks and go to air assault school, which is a sort of a little airborne school, but out of helicopters.
Yeah, it's a tough 12-day school, though.
It's a tough, with the 12 days.
Yeah, I think it's a 12-day school that is it's the toughest 12-day school in the Army.
Yeah, take about 2 months and squeeze it down into a half a month. Right. That's what you experience. And it was very intense. I whooshed through it because I've been training for Buds. I was doing the Buds training PT.
Nice.
Like literally 300 push-ups, 400 sit-ups, 200 pull-ups in an hour.
Nice.
An hour. That's what we prepared for with that conditioning program.
Yeah.
I have another one. I love this. my own PT program, which I do minimally. You know, your focus, there's so much going on with the physical training. I don't want to distract from that, but I will throw a plug out there. I
No,
have
go
this
ahead.
routine I call the 99 Problems PT,
Okay, I love it.
which we do 99 exercises in 50 minutes.
Okay.
20 seconds, 20 seconds, 20 seconds. It's randomized every time, and it's all SEAL exercises.
Oh, that's
The
fun.
push-up, begin, and stop, and the pull-up, begin. So the person is doing it self-paced. I've taken clients in their 60s and young studs in their 20s and done the exact same routine with them. It's completely personalized
Oh, that's
because
cool.
each person does what he can in those 20 seconds.
Absolutely scalable. Yeah, I love
CrossFit
that.
cycle.
Great idea.
It's a lot of fun. So it's 99 problems because you manage to do exactly 99 exercises in 50 minutes because we take a full 30 seconds off to break. I like the right in the middle. I give them a full 30 seconds off. Right, it's like a little joke there, because your triathletes can bang out a lot of reps in that time.
Sure.
But you got to pace yourself and be smart too, because you still have like 80 more, 70 more, 20 more exercises to go. So I'd love to do that kind of a challenging thing. I lost the bubble though on where we were.
We were talking about you realized you're going to make it after you quit.
Yeah, the quitting, right. So yeah. I was very established in life by that time, and I had established a sense of obligation, obviously, a commitment to a marriage, a commitment to my kids. At the time, we only had Gabe, who was a young boy at the time, and then Jack and Effie would follow after in the around the turn of the century. But in mid 90s, I was really established, and I thought I had a lot of second guessing for myself because I was with the 22-year-old kids. I didn't really have any fear of failure. Honestly, I mean, we all have the wondering. I mean, even if you're the most motivated, confident guy in the history of buds, there's still a possibility you're going to get a compound fracture of the femur.
You pray you don't get injured. Absolutely. You got to pray you don't get injured. If you're the toughest guy there, you pray you don't get injured.
Because we don't control that. That is out of our control, and that's what humility is all about. Knowing, dude, I can fall on rock portage, come in on a heavy wave, be the little spider guy that runs out with the rope, and I can go smash on the rocks with the wave, and I can crush my rib cage. I get a puncture in the lung. I'll never be a SEAL in my life, not in this lifetime. You puncture that lung, you're done. No, they're going to fix you because Buds is the staff at Buds is the best in the world at fixing broken guys, right? Because we have kill guys all the time because it's the most challenging. It's a very, very tough school. So injuries happen all the time. But they're experts at fixing broken guys. But some broken things cannot go back to Buds. You don't go back. I want to throw a shout out to my buddy Harley Davidson here. We'll call him Harley because that's his nickname because his last name's Davidson. But Harley was in my class as his third class. He joined us in 205 after getting busted up in his first class. He's like, I'm not quitting no matter what. So he got fixed and came back for his second class, got busted up. And he said, I'm not leaving. I'm not, you can't get rid of me. He'd been in Buds for like a year, I think, when he got to me. He joined us late in our class. We went to San Clemente Island. We went on for the third phase, we went on a landing craft because we couldn't fly out there because air wasn't available for it. So we went on a landing craft from San Diego to the island, got to the island, dropped the ramp just like in World War II, started doing a little ant line, getting stuff off of the boat. It wasn't a ship, it was a boat. Sure. And Harley was next to the ramp. And I was right behind Harley. We're both receiving gear off the boat, passing it to guys who carried up on the beach in this like bucket brigade. And the ramp, here's Harley standing here, and the ramp was against him. He was like braced against the thing. And there's a little bit of a swell, and it lifted up, and it slid over, and it pushed his leg down because his leg was planted on the sand. And it got against his leg, which he couldn't lift up, and went bonk like that and rested on his leg. Now Harley, the rest of him is down over here under the surf like this. Oh. And his lips aren't long enough, and the ship is lying on his leg. And he's like, this can't be good. This is like a dying thing, right? Because he was literally in like 2 feet of surf, and the lips weren't quite long enough to get to the oxygen above it, and there's a ship on his leg. So we're digging like a bunch of little rats, I was behind him, and I was screaming, and we got him. We dug out the sand. The ship stayed where it was because that's what ships do. But we pulled his leg out, and it was, of course, badly bruised. He was at medevac back to the island to get repaired, back to Balboa or whatever. And I remember that we talked about it. We actually met up in Hawaii recently. In recent years, I'll just leave it very generic because we've worked together in various contracts over the years. But the dude he wasn't sure if his leg was mutilated, if the ligaments were torn beyond repair and so forth, if he'd lose it, whatever. He was crying On the way back to the hospital, not in pain. He could take the pain. He was terrified he would lose his buds.
Yeah.
That's power. That's
Yeah.
determination. I
Yeah.
love that spirit. That's the crossing over. That's the I will not be broken. That became my theme song in Buds. I won't back down, because I reached the point at which I made the decision. I literally, we're always supposed to just like hang out to the next evolution, right? I can quit tomorrow. That's the mindset. I can quit tomorrow, because it gets pretty overwhelming to be in Bud sometimes. You got to get up every 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock every morning for 6 months. You got to go do it again, and Hell Week is Hell Week and all that.
Yeah,
But it wasn't
especially when you have those outside responsibilities that most people
exactly.
don't have.
They're
I
pulling
went
at
to
you. They're like,
22, single, no
pulling at you.
kids.
You have a lot of stuff. So my life was established 10 years as an adult with a family, a career, the whole thing.
So how'd
And
they
I
get
just
you?
wanted
How'd
to
they
bring up
let
my
you come
family.
back? What was
Well,
what?
I told the guy on the obstacle course after we finished it, no panic, no, like, I wasn't pulling out of the surf zone, or like, I gotta quit or whatever. I just said, you know what, this isn't right. I'm hurting my family. I'm not willing to do that, because I knew, I just so motivated to go to Buds all those years. I went through it like mindlessly, like going into it without thinking it through and saying, I'm gonna hurt my family. I'll be on the road all the time. I'll be in combat. I'll be potentially dying from it. And like my father, who turned away from the Green Berets, were all over him back in 65, 66. They're like, dude, we need you, because Dad's 6'4", tall, strong, athletic, intellectually gifted. He was the perfect
Linguist.
specimen for a special forces guy.
Yeah.
They're like, we need you. And he's like, sorry, man, I got a new wife, new kid, because I was born then. And so he rejected the berets, and I'm in the same. I'm right in the process of becoming a SEAL, and I walked up to my training officer on the beach, the guy that's in charge, to listen. Hey, Petty Officer Smith, I quit. I quit, because I thought about hurting my family all those years to come, as well as all the years I've put and taken so much away from them for my preparation. And he's like, "What?" I said, "Yeah, I decided to quit." But we're not even in anything hard right now. I said, I know. That's why I'm saying it now. I'm not gonna pussy out. I'm not gonna pussy out of the hard stuff. The hard stuff doesn't scare me. What scared me was the abuse or the neglect or the harm I would bring to the family. That's what a man does. A man thinks of others first. I wasn't scared of the O course, which we had just finished. I wasn't
Sure.
scared of the rock course to come next day. I wasn't scared of the stuff we had done before. I just didn't want to be that guy who did that to his family. I had a massive moral crisis. But I didn't go to the detail. I was like, yeah, I just quit.
So
Like,
obviously you had some conversations immediately after that with the chain of command.
I did.
How did you?
Yep.
How did they say get back into?
Basically, each one of them said the same thing. Because he said, go talk to the chief. I was like, okay. I went to talk to the chief. He said, I got to leave. I'm going to hurt my family too much for this. He's like, because nobody wanted me to walk away. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, you got this, man. You like, as SEALs, as you and I know, as SEALs, we're like, you see a guy wavering, you see a guy in the surf zone. Check this out. People will say, like, for the audience that hasn't been to Buds, you see a dude locked arm in arm in the surf zone, hide the student and all that, and people freak out. They're like, let me go, man, let me go, let me go.
Yeah.
They want to run away and go back to the warm blankets and the cocoa in the ambu truck and
That's
the
a
nice warm
different.
van.
Yeah.
And others will hold them back.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the crab thing, crabs pulling people back, other crabs back in the bucket, won't let them out. But it's opposite in the purpose, because the purpose is love. The purpose is commitment. The purpose is loyalty. We won't let the man go because we know in that moment he's having a weakness that is not him. It doesn't identify him. He wants to run to the van that moment. Well, of course, the occasional turd will let him go. Hey, yeah, go ahead, go to the van. But most guys, we lock arms. We lock arms because we're all stronger together. You need that dude to be you got your back, right? So it's just like a bar fight, just like a drunken incident. Like, come on, dumbass, we're going back to the house so you can sleep it off instead of getting in the fight with that guy that might stab you. You watch your brother's back. So in the surf zone, we watch his back. Guy wants to bail, he wants to break away in Hell Week. I mean, we literally caught guys and dragged them back to the surf zone who wanted to run away down the beach when they lose their minds.
There's two schools of thought out there. There's two schools of thought out there. One, you let them quit, get them out of the class, and then two, you say together. I was kind of in the same mindset as you, especially going into Hell Week. As the officer in the class, one of the officers in the class, as a boat crew leader. I'm like, hey man, let's do this together. Let's win races. Let's help each other out. stay positive. And, I remember one guy having a bad day, about day 3 hours into it, crapping himself. And he was just having a bad time. I'm like, we're paddling around the world. I'm saying, take a break. We'll get you around the world for a little while. And, an hour later he popped in and was like ready to go, but we could have bitched at him, and
Right.
he'd have quit right there, crying his way to the beach or whatever. And, yeah, I agree with you. There's two different mindsets out there. I'm not sure which one's right, which one's wrong.
There's the ruthless alternative, which says, F you, man, you're out of here, man. Whenever
I
somebody
always thought that the
stumbles.
boat itself made teammates,
Absolutely.
whereas in recent years, it is dividing people. I mean, under the boat. I mean, there's a lot of
Really.
ruthlessness underneath that boat these days.
Sort of
I'm
like
just I get a whole bunch of feedback from
Survivor,
guys going through the
like
buds.
putting others off the island kind of stuff.
Yeah, so it's an interesting topic.
That's
So
indicative of our culture.
it
That's
is
indicative
very
of
much so. We're
personalities that
very
enter
divided
Buds.
right now.
Yeah, the mindset that enters Buds is different from the mindset in the 80s, 90s, 70s.
Yeah,
And it's about the character. I mean, it's
yeah,
fundamental character. Are you a person who's going to support the person near you? The Bible talks about love your neighbor, right? It's like, it doesn't have to be a Christian next to me. I love my neighbor means I will watch out for human beings near me. In the
yeah.
Buds context, I will watch out for the guy who's black or white or Jewish or whatever near me.
Yeah.
And very soon, possibly women. I'll watch out for the man or
I
woman.
looked at it as my job wasn't to be another instructor.
Right.
My job was to be a student, and we were going to get through this together.
Bring it whole
And
together, be the
yeah,
cohesive.
absolutely.
So we do that. We watch out for each other. So my decision was 100% in my head and 100% my looking forward to the next 20 years and saying, I can't do that to my family. So I went and talked to the chief. He said, what? The same, they had this baffled look like, nobody quits like this. You don't, that's not how you quit. You got to go, oh, ding, ding, ding. I can't take it. But I was like, nope, it's right for my career, right for my family. But I went and I called my ex-wife at the time, my wife at the time, after I talked to the training officer, Tim, we'll leave it at that. Tim is a guy I'm friends with today. And because I was routed up the chain, they said, well, you got to get to talk to the training officer. I said, talk to him. And lunch was about to start on that school day. And so I went and talked to him. And he was like, what? This doesn't make any sense. It doesn't compute. It's not how people quit. So he said, just go back to your barracks and come back in an hour or come back in 2 hours. And we'll talk about this. No, everybody was like reluctant to let me just leave the surf zone and run to the truck. Which it wasn't that. It was me outthinking myself and trying to be the right moral person and saying, I got to think of my family's needs. Well, I got back to the barracks and I was like, oh, this is awesome, man. I picked up the phone, called my wife, was like, hey, good news. She's like, what? I said, I quit. She went berserk. You put us through this for 3 years of preparation. You go back in there and unquit. Because her mindset was, this is what you want to do, no matter the impact on the family. She said, you will be a complete jerk to the family if you quit and come back to us with your tail between your legs as a quote failure. And so I was like, yeah, you're right. I mean, I'll be, well, no, I won't be. But she said, you do this because you have to follow through on this, whatever happens. We were married for another 15 years after that. But I went back to the training officer. I said, so I want to unquit. He's like, I don't know if we can do that, but nothing had been done. It was just like, it was that hiccup. It was the guy in your boat for an hour. You said, dude, take a break. Because again, after he took that break, right, he was strong and fresh again. He needed the space to process. I was processing the future impact on my family, and they all didn't like it. The chain didn't like it. They were like, we don't want this to happen. We want a guy to fail because he can't make it, because he can't hack it. But you can hack it.
Yeah, there's some statistics, and it's like this bell curve of statistics. You got the young guys are, few graduates. You got the older guys that are fewer graduates, and everybody in the middle is like that 20 to 23 unmarried guy.
Right.
And you get their left and right of the curve.
More reasons.
People make that for a reason, and that's
yes.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So what happened after Buds? Where'd you go after that?
So I went right back to my class. Nobody even knew I quit. I did it all rationally and calmly and saying and describing it to certain individuals. So I got back to rejoined my class after lunch and like, oh, here, hi, we're still doing this thing. We're still doing training for the next 6 months, whatever
So
it was.
just a couple hour slip there.
Yeah, exactly. It was a pause. It was a press pause while I went through the process of what I thought was the right thing to do. I thought it was the right thing to do in serving others, and the
Sure.
chain of command disagreed with it, and my family disagreed with it. So I was like, oh, okay, I did that. So I went back, and my theme song for the rest of Buds was Tom Petty, "I Won't Back Down." I heard it
I
in my
like
head
it. I
all
like
the
it.
time. I heard it in my head whenever I was going through ordeals and Hell Week to come. I don't know if I think, yeah, it was just before Hell Week. It was like in the first few days. But it made that moral struggle, and then after that, it was like washed through like it was predestined. So it was 15 of us graduated from a class of 142,
Oh
and
wow.
I was one of those 15 with that story, with that qualifier.
Right.
So I went. So in the end of Buds, they're asking about your dream seats. What do you want to do after Buds? I had always planned to go back to SDV Team 1 back in Hawaii because the team had been newly established there. It was a debt before, and it was established as a full team. Moved over from San Diego, and so it was like a no brainer. They're like, you want to go to SDV? Because at the time it was very strongly stigmatized.
Yeah, I went to SDVs too after Buds.
Did you?
Yeah,
Like
on
one
the
or
East
two?
Coast though. Oh, two.
Okay, cool. You were out there, so you know my pain.
Yeah,
You
sure.
know
Oh
the
yeah.
SDV pyramid.
I
One thing
learned
goes
what
wrong.
cold was.
Exactly. Yeah.
I thought I was
My
cold today.
viscous.
Got it. No. Well,
We did dives for every dive on the dive soup or whatever. I'm filling out the risk assessment sheet. Okay, water temp 70. Doesn't matter what day of the year, water temp 70. We didn't even check it. The water temp 70, air temp 75,
it's
year
funny.
round.
Yeah, funny.
Sorry about
Yeah.
that. You know about cold and gray and
Oh
dark.
yeah. So you
So
got there at
I
a
went
unique
to
time,
one.
and you got there in a unique time in history. Getting towards the late '90s, and of course after 9/11. How did you guys ramp it up after 2001? Where were you in 2001?
Well, that's a big part of my story. I went to the team, SDV Team 1, settled in. Now my family was still there in Hawaii. They stayed there while I was gone for the year plus, Buds and airborne and all the stuff. I went to the team, was in what we did was our training platoon at the time, because now again, at AOT, Advanced Operator Training, the guys just stay for 12 months and get their sniper, their comms, all the stuff we had to get piecemeal over the
Sure. Yeah.
years of our team life. So I started doing my team life stuff, got my intel schools, my counterterrorism schools, because the teams didn't know that a cryptologist is not an intel guy. A CT is
Right.
not an IS.
Right.
I knew because I was a CT, but they're like, oh, you're the intel guy, right? I was like, cool. So I started banging out, qualifications, became the consummate intel guy, which led to my career post-Navy and even during Navy when I was always the intel guy, the counterterrorism guy. I went
Nice.
to Hurlburt Field back and forth to AFSOC to learn all their intelligence courses. If you know of an intelligence course, I've probably been in it,
Oh, nice.
selection or analysis or prosecution. So targeting stuff. So I did all those things for my life, my years. And then, so I had a conversation with a teammate who was a real knuckle dragger. We all know them. There's some intellectuals, some knuckle draggers, some guys that are both, in the middle. I like to think of myself as more nerd than thug, but I'm still got plenty of thug in me. No doubt about my ability to hold up in a fight, but I really like to do the intellectual stuff, the thinking stuff, the counterterrorism stuff. And we had an argument at the copier when I was doing my travel planning to go back to Hurlburt Field to AFSOC for the dynamics of international terrorism. And he's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to AFSOC." This guy was like my favorite. He disliked everything I did, everything I stood for, everything I represented in life. It was like his purpose was to naysay it. He's like, "What are you doing that for?" So I'm going to terrorism courses. He's like, "SEALs don't have to know about terrorism." And this is like in the winter of 2001,
Wow.
a few months
Wow.
before 9/11.
Yeah.
SEALs don't have to know about terrorism.
Wow.
That's a quote from a SEAL. So we got to know how to shoot, how to fix outboard motors, how to jump. He's like listing the beginner's guide to SEAL work.
Right.
But that's not what a SEAL is. A SEAL is a thinking, feeling sensor, an operator who can snap into any environment and create any solution, any outcome we want to do. And some of us understand that. He didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So a few months later, General Schumacher at the time came to the team and said, "Shut up and listen, guys. Every every operator in SOCOM, everybody I own is a counterterrorism guy now. And I was like, looking at the dude. But anyway, before he said that, because Schumacher went to all the teams, all the SF guys, all the Marines, went to everybody and said, you're a counterterrorism guy. Get your head out of your ass. Do this, because CT is what we're doing. Don't forget how to dive to the SEALs. Don't forget how to do FID, how to do foreign internal development to the snake eaters, the Green Berets. Don't forget how to do your basic skill set, but you're a counterterrorism guy. So 9/11, I've been deployed for a few months. I was on the 9/11 cruise. We were downrange. We based out of Bahrain and bounced out of there doing JSETs all over the community, or joint exercise. Joint combined
I remember those. Yeah.
For all of our different foreign counterparts. I worked with a lot of Arab SEALs. And on 9/11 itself, we were training for 6 weeks at this base, a remote base. Can't be specific about it, what the country was, but with Gulf Arab SEALs. And we were settling down that night after training, teaching them how to kill terrorists. And we got a call. Somebody from the TV lounge. Now, picture this very wealthy Arab country with lots of oil money. And they have all the features. They got the big satellite TV, the TV room. It was a really posh environment for us at this remote site on an island in the Gulf. Some dude called out, hey, a plane just ran into one of the towers in New York. And it's like, we're winding down. It's evening time in there. We'd wrapped up training. We're all back in our rooms reading or writing or whatever. So it all kind of trickled out, all the Arabs and all the Americans. 20 SEALs kind of trickled out like, oh, that's interesting. What's going on? We watch the TV. We see this tower burning in real time, which all of the people in the U.S. were watching in real time in the morning here, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. And we're like, oh, that's interesting. And we all kind of stand there like, we're all friends. We're all teammates. I've been working with these guys for a month. I know Jamal. I know Rashid. These are friends of mine. But there's a distinct thing here, because we all also are very well educated in, well, not all of us, but almost all the SEALs know what terrorism is about, because almost all the SEALs know we are counterterrorism guys. So we're like, that's probably an Arab plot. That's probably a jihadi plot, as we watch this tower burn. But we don't know. Could it be the most amazing accident in the world? Could it be an incredible coincidence? Does a jet airliner ever accidentally run into a tower in New York? Possibly. We're looking at
I was thinking suicidal pilot.
Yes.
And then I saw the second one. Then I saw the second one hit, and I was like, done. I'm going home, grabbing the kids.
What it was.
Yeah.
So we watched it, and we saw that second plane burn in, because the newscaster was like, wait, something's happening. And you still see the whole thing. You see the second bird come in, and all of us, without speaking, sat down. I can see that room like my suicide rail at the deck, third deck on my barracks. In that room, we, 20 Arabs and 20 Americans together, sat down. Almost like when you're in fourth grade, they say, okay, boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl. It was Arab American, like brothers in arms, united against this thing, which we all knew was probably Arab terrorists, Arab jihadi terrorists. Violent extremist organization, which term we didn't use at the time, but that's what it was.
Yeah.
We all knew that. The Arabs knew it, the Americans knew it, but we didn't give a shit about it. We're supporting each other. We're here for a united cause. We're fighting terrorism, and that's happening. So it was a profound experience. I have I mentioned my book earlier. This is Powerful Peace, the Navy SEALs Lessons on Peace, in reverse because of the whole video thing. But this is my book from 2012, Powerful Peace, and the first chapter is called Hate. And it's based on my understanding of a book about peace. It's based on the understanding that when someone is harmed severely, hate, September 11th, 2001.
Wow.
Because at the time, I was this guy who was very educated on terrorism, very educated on intelligence processes, collection process. And I knew that it was probably, I knew bin Laden before anybody else knew bin Laden, because I was in the world that studied things like a bin Laden.
Sure.
We knew what Zawahiri was. We knew he was number 2, because that's how it works. You know your domain. The comms guys knew their comm stuff, which I couldn't manage. The medical guy knew his medical stuff, and I knew the intel. So we all sat and watched it. I knew who was probably behind it, and we knew we were going to war. We knew that training is ending in those hours. But we sat there for 3 hours without one word. We all just sat there and experienced it together. The Americans are burning in rage and pain to protect those people that are dying by the thousands. And that's why I start with the word hate, because I understand the pain. I understand why people do feel like retaliating. But my work has always been about saying, stop, assess the situation, like the OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, act. We cannot bear the humans acting like animals, reacting like dogs. One dog walks past another dog goes, "Arr," and the second dog bites him. That's not what humans do in their optimal state. If somebody comes in and they're in a bad mood because they didn't get laid the night before, or he's scared about a job process, he may get fired that day, and I say, "Hey, good morning, Bill," and he says, "What's good about it?" Well, I have the choice in that moment, just like Stephen Covey talked about. Between stimulus and response is a space. In that space, you choose your response. You don't say, "Oh yeah, well screw you too."
Yeah.
Most people do today. Most people do today. You talked about under the boat. Most people are like, "No, no, no, I got you. I'm going to vote you off the island." But we are from a generation of character that says, "I got your back." We need to evolve to the level, like I talk about in Powerful Peace, where we, despite the fact that we understand what hate and rage and pain, agony is, and the agony leading to a desire to retaliate, we need to do it mindfully, because September 11th led to the War on Terror, the GWAT led to OIF, OEF. A lot of questions were asked at a lot of levels about whether it was even appropriate to attack Iraq, whether it was appropriate to attack Afghanistan. Was it, all the things, all the questions. And in hindsight, 20 years later, we can see a lot of better answers.
Yeah, you know what? Let's do this. Let's talk about what you're doing now, because you're giving us a taste into your current day mindset when you talk about your history, because I can see it.
That is the foundation of what I do today.
It is really good. So let's talk about what you're doing now. What your website, what services you provide, and what got you into this?
Well, I'm still a hybrid. So I was raised a kid from California and New York. So I was a kid in Northern California and left there when I was like 11 years old, 10 or 11, went to New York, to upstate New York, where I grew up and did the Saranac Lakes and the canoe guiding and all this stuff. I was a hybrid politically, because my parents were opposed politically at the time. One was left, one was right. I was hybrid in the Navy as a spook, a nerd thug, half NSA, half SEAL guy. And so I'm still a hybrid today. I still do security support. I got into red teaming in the end of my career. My final tour, my twilight tour, was red teaming, which means being a terrorist for the U.S., but not a harmful terrorist, a helpful terrorist. My goal is to take all my intel experience, all my tactical experience, and all my 36 countries of experience where I've worked around the world, and understand who is going to harm us in this base or this government facility or whatever the target is. Who will come after us? How? What can we do to prevent it? Basically, how do we mitigate the threats, the vulnerabilities? So I began doing that in the early 2000s, right after 9/11. Became really good at it. I still do consulting for red team stuff, and I still support the government. I won't say much about that, but I still support the government with red teaming. So going into the mind of the terrorist, into the mind of the adversary. But on the corporate side, with Impact Actual, our company, which is impactactual.com, it's all about personal development, coaching and personal development, helping the human beings grow. To spend about 3 months going through an intense business development process of understanding our infrastructure and establishing the framework upon which we can build this empire of impact growth for people. I have one product. I have a bunch of things we can do, but one product is called the Unchained Program. Unchained is a 6-week online program, which is probably like some of your opportunities that people can do stuff virtually, like training routines with you, and you can feed the materials. Unchained was a distillation of my coaching, my personal coaching, which I still do, but much less, because we all have only so many hours in our lives. I was working with people, transformation, lives changed. So one person lost 100 pounds, but that wasn't my goal. My goal was just to help her become a healthier human being, body, mind, heart, and soul, the whole approach to the whole person. Another person said, "You saved our marriage," just by reading my book. Another guy said, "You saved my father and I. You gave me back my dad," because he was 19 when he read Powerful Peace. He read through the concepts in there about personal accountability, first and foremost. Personal accountability. You can't change anything in the world without changing yourself. When you change yourself, you make an effect on the world, and the world can respond to that. It will change accordingly. If you make lousy choices, the effect on the world will probably be lousy. If you make positive choices, like today we need it so desperately in our society, and the fighting on the streets, and the racial crisis, and the political crises, all of this is based on individuals not doing their best as a human, knowing what's best for others around them, watching, responding, and sacrificing, giving of ourselves. So the Unchained Program is a distillation of a few months of my coaching one-on-one. I said, what do I do when I work with a client for a few months? I kind of squeeze it down and said, okay, in week 1, I'll do what I do in the first goal setting, figure out where they're coming from. Week 2, we'll go into gaps. Red teaming, again, being the guy that finds the gaps, the vulnerabilities. So we attack the gaps in body, mind, heart, and soul. How are they physically? Are they maintaining themselves in the physical fitness realm? Are they maintaining their finances well? Are they being irresponsible? All the physical material stuff. The mind, creative, imaginative, the heart, emotional, sensing, compassionate, empathetic, and the soul, again, character and ethics. That's the foundation of everything we're doing at Impact right now. And it has, we have a massive vision for growth from here, but it's all about the Unchained program right now. Just people getting into the Unchained program, and they can go to Impact Actual and reach out to me right there, impactactual.com, or find me anywhere on the web as Rob Dubois. Right. All my social sites are Rob Dubois.
Yeah, that's where I found you. I found you on Instagram, which you inspired me with the Monday morning mindset.
Yeah,
I'm like,
just started doing that.
Let me see who Rob is. And so, it's been great listening to your stories. They're very powerful. It sounds like you're also able to do something that a lot of people don't do. You know, you're able to hit two sides of your brain with your work. You know, you have a technical side, the red teaming side that comes with a career history of understanding vulnerabilities and opportunities, right? And then you have the other side where you're actually an empathetic human being and you're actually helping people become better humans, you know, which is, and writing, you know, so all that creativity inside. So you got a analytical side, creative side that's really balancing you well.
A person should do that. A person should go, and I teach that you can train that. You can train across the, you know, we talk about PT in the military. Well, the acronym for mental training is MT. ET is emotional training. ST is spiritual training. Or again, the ethical. Not talking about your religion, talking about your core fundamental ethical values. Unlike what a lot of people today focus on, which is what they're fed from their side. I'm a liberal, so I hate the conservatives, and they're bad because fill in the blank. You're getting that from your networks. You're getting that from your channels. You're getting that from being preached to in the choir by those who agree with you. You only listen to them.
And vice versa.
Side. Exactly. I hate the libtards. I hate the people with all the hate name calling we have right now is largely manufactured. I can tell you, and I'm talking about on social, people find my stuff right now, talking very blatantly about interference from foreign powers.
Oh, absolutely.
Unclassified stuff. The disinformation campaign is tearing our family apart. Our American family, good Americans, 330 million Americans, is being destroyed and fragmented by internal divisions, which are being stimulated from outside, which are being perpetuated from the inside. We're becoming our own worst enemy. I did a video.
And things that are not political whatsoever somehow fall into a red and blue category.
Exactly.
And I don't understand
protecting our children.
Yeah.
Gun rights. These are things that don't have anything to do with the party and everything to do with what a person's philosophical approach is to the world. But people are being willingly divided because they're told you have to think this way if you're in our camp.
Yeah. I'm an equal opportunity hater of politicians.
Exactly.
Well, like, far left, far right, I got no use for you.
Absolutely. Are we working for the country's good, or are we working for our party's benefit? Very quick aside on that, very important aside. There's a congressman who's passed away a few years ago named Ike Skelton. Ike had over 40 years in the Congress, Democrat. I worked with him, and I worked with one of his chief staffer for a while, Bill, on some stuff. But I sat down at dinner with Ike one night, and I talked to him about this. I said, sir, forgive me for being, I hope this isn't insulting to you personally, but I want to call it out. Like, this is my nature. People know me as the guy that's the honest broker. People can disagree with me politically, religiously, culturally, socially, economically, but say, you know what? Rob's going to tell it like it is. Unlike all the talking heads who say what their masters say in the media, on Fox, on MSNBC, there are corporate masters saying, this is the things you will say today. This is what the politicians will say, and they've planned it to say it with you. You say it on the news.
Oh, yeah.
They'll say it on the
talking
stand.
Points. They provide each other talking points. Yeah, it's
never been so coordinated as ever, and it's the most destructive thing our nation could ever deal with. If politicians stand on their principles and say, I'm voting this based on my conscience, based on what I know is right for the nation, in my belief system, we would have a functioning system. So I said to Ike, I said, I see big division between the left and the right that is primarily based on just dominance of the other side. Everybody wants the 51%. The issues are being ground under the grist. They are the issues of abortion, gay marriage, gun rights, economic policy, all the things that matter to healthcare, Americans, all these things that matter to us are just an on or an off. It's a 1 or a 0 for them because it's a blue perspective, and the opposite perspective is the red perspective. I said, that's a recipe for disaster. We're going to race off a cliff if we keep doing that, fighting for dominance, because all the issues get ignored.
You're right. Yeah, and media sells conflict, right?
Exactly.
It's rich versus poor. It's black versus white. It's red versus blue. It's weather versus human, nature versus man. Whatever that is, they're going to get better ratings whenever conflict sells. Remember the old saying, when it bleeds, it leads?
Exactly. And they do it because that's where the money is, because the soap commercials are where they make their money. It's not about news. And so many people get confused by the word NEWS. NEWS is not a thing anymore. It doesn't exist. The truth is not in the news. The truth is hidden in the news. You can find it if you watch enough outlets and parse it out for yourself and think critically and say, what are they probably trying to convey here with their twisting of the truth? So the left and the right are both doing their media profit margins of selling soap. So I confirmed that. He said, yeah, Rob, when I got started in this game 40, 50 years ago, we would all meet at the Congress every day and we'd talk for the cameras and say, well, they're wrong because this, and they're wrong because this, and we're going to make them, and blah, blah, blah. The same fighting for theatrics publicly. But he said every night, look at the Tom Hanks movie about Charlie Wilson's War, about a congressman who's a
classic.
It shows the cocaine. It shows the martinis. It shows the infidelity. It shows the orgies. It shows a lot of stuff that was happening. I'm not saying Ike was involved in that. Of course, every congressional member is doing his or her own thing.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of backlot car dealership stuff going on because the behavior was behind closed doors. The aristocrats have always had that option to do some skanky stuff behind closed doors and present a very different self on the front. But he said, yeah, back in the day, we'd go back to we'd meet, we'd have our cocktails, we'd fight about the issues, we'd conclude certain things, we'd meet in the middle on some certain things, and the next day, we'd go back to the microphones and the public and we'd say, we had a victory because we forced those Republicans, those Democrats to concede these issues. So each side would claim victory. Each side's audience would feel good about what happened, and the government moved forward. He said that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, there's definitely some stalemates going on.
And they fight in their private camps. The DNC, the RNC, never the two shall meet. And that is a recipe for disaster. We are heading for a cliff. I personally am concerned about our way of life literally approaching a tipping point with the disinformation, with the personal division we're allowing to ourselves. Americans are destroying America. That's the title of a video I did a few days ago. Oh. Americans are part of the destruction of America right now, and I hate to see it because I offered my life up, and for the rest of my life, I'll defend it, whatever's left of it. But our democracy is being shattered, our freedom, our way of life of being a diverse society, the melting pot, all of it's up in the air right now. And there are enemy forces that are actively trying, it's called active measures for a reason, actively trying to destroy our cohesion so that we will be divided and conquered.
Yeah.
Our unity is our great strength, and we're abandoning it.
Absolutely. Man, this has been a great discussion, Rob. I hope we have given you enough time to talk about what you do now, impactactual.com.
Yes, absolutely. Impact, and Rob Dubois, spelled ROBDUBOIS. Looks like Rob Dubois, but please don't call me that.
Right.
So that's everywhere. Rob Dubois. Even go to robdubois.com. You'll just we'll just bounce right.
Okay,
back
nice. Well, I'll put all those links. I'll put all the links in the description of this video. But yeah, that's the conclusion of 2 Through and After with Rob Dubois. So I appreciate you sharing your journey because, all journeys have moments of triumph and usually are triggered by moments of pain as well. So thanks for, your honest storytelling. Really appreciate that. And, it sounds like you're doing great things now, helping people. And that's, that's what it's all about. So
it is. We live to give.
Yeah. Thanks for your service, and thanks for your continued service.
You too, Stu. Thank you.
And continued growth.
Inevitably, until I die. And that might be 5 minutes from now or 5 decades. I'm aiming for the latter.
Yeah.
I intend to get at least triple digits in life and give to the last breath. Give of my honesty, give of my courageous confrontation of whatever we need to deal with, so that we can help people be stronger and better and healthier.
I love it. Hey, thank you so much, Rob. Everybody, check out Rob Dubois at impactactual.com. Follow his Instagram. It's really insightful. You really have some really good information that you pop out there. And like I said, I saw you on the Monday Morning Mindset, and I'm like, oh, I love it. Got to do that. I got to have you on. So you inspired me already. So
It's been a great talk. Thank you.
thank you.